All
your
right.
hard drive was probably like, what the hell, man?
I mean, my hard drive was like, "What are you doing, man?" All right, Geoff. It is great to see you again. It's great to talk to you again. I
Good to
love
see
our
you too.
conversations. Like when we hit record, when we don't hit record, I just love talking with you, and I appreciate your willingness to sit down with me again, man.
Yeah, it's always good to catch up with friends and friends that become, a version of family and, have an open and honest conversation about how much the Mets are wearing it right now. And,
So
talk about,
I actually yeah, and talk about all sorts of stuff. So I had to look back. We did our first interview almost 3 years ago, like late September-ish 2022. So 2.5 years ago. And at that time, you had recently returned to Germany. You'd tried to move there um, because that country's government and sort of social supports for um, uh, for the disabled are significant. It didn't work out. And also you had recently been let go from your job as a marketing director. So give us an update on what's gone on the last 2.5 years. Where are you living now? How's it going on the job front? All that stuff.
uh, try to give the short version because nobody wants to listen to the super long one, including myself. So, so still looking for work. But after I got back from Germany, I went to Charlotte for a little while, then came back here where I am now, upstate New York, to be with family for the holidays. Stayed stayed here for like 6 months or whatever, and then went back to Charlotte. Um, like ended up living there for about a year and a half. Then last August, I had a surprise health issue because I've had a lot of surgeries, but all my surgeries have been planned, months in advance. Give yourself time to do the mental prep. The and okay, I'm having this. Rehab's gonna suck, and but uh, one day last August, I started throwing up like exorcist style a lot all the time. Um, so then a couple days went by and I didn't throw up, and then so I thought I was like fine, and then I started repeating that process again. So I called a friend because sometimes you need the kick in the pants, like, hey, I think I need to go to the hospital, knowing that I needed to go, but you don't want to go for it's a hospital and
Mm,
then financial impact
mm,
after I don't have a job and all that. So
mm.
she's like, all right, I'm coming over. We had a brief conversation where it was basically like, drag your ass to the hospital. So we figured out that we were going to do a non-emergency ambulance ride to the hospital, and so you do the whole ER thing for 7 8 hours, and I thought they were just gonna like ad- admit me and I'd be back home in a couple days, and
Mm.
but then next thing you know, you you're being admitted, but you're on the surgery floor and meeting with surgical teams and test and test and test and we think it's this, spoiler alert, we don't think it is anymore. So I had one surgery, the first surgery that I probably didn't need,
Mm.
and then I went to stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks after that, and then went to a rehab facility filled mostly with dementia patients. I was I'm 41 now, 40 at the time. Um, and like most of the people there are, close to 80 or in their 80s and having all the problems that are related to dementia. And so that was a mental
Mm.
that was tough on me mentally, and I'm still throwing up, and so I go back to the hospital, get admitted again, go go back to rehab, like, but this time I have a like feeding tube because my stomach basically stopped working, so it wasn't like processing um like nutrients at all. Um,
Mm.
and then so so I was getting food through IV and like literal IV, and then like tube feeds, like a pump, and so then there was several like issues with the literal tubing like inside. So then I went back to the ER, back to rehab, back to the hospital, and then I came home. One of those mom come get me type deals at 41. Came home like a couple days before Thanksgiving, and um, trying to get bits and pieces of my independence back. Um, Now and trying to find housing and a job and all the things, but there
So you're
was
back in upstate New York.
yeah, I'm in Saratoga,
Certainly.
which which is above Albany, about a half an hour or so.
So tell me more about the illness. Was it just random that your stomach stopped?
Um,
Was it brought on by your underlying condition? Like what caused it? Do they know?
it's difficult because I've been poked and prodded and scanned a lot. I'm surprised I don't glow in the dark at this point. Um, but they think it had to do with like I have cerebral palsy. That's my base condition, for lack of a better term. But the the original surgery team thought that I was like micro losing weight over months, and like prior to the like crap hitting the fan, where it's like, bleh, um, and and so so like they estimate that I lost like 70 pounds over that period, and so like and then what we now know that I have is gastroparalysis. I have a mild case of that. So what that means in layman's terms is that my stomach is slow to digest like food. So I have to give myself more time to like
Mm.
digest nutrients stuff.
Wow. So you lost 70 pounds. What did you get down to?
At my lowest, I was like 73, 74 pounds, something like that.
Man.
Yeah.
And what are you now? What are you now and what do the doctors ideally want you at?
I'm close to where they want me. I'm like it's really hard to weigh me, right? Um
Right. Hmm.
so but they have hospital beds that if you zero them out and you take all the pillows off and stuff like that, you can get a weight.
Hmm.
So I'm roughly between like 110 and 115, which weight for me has always been a catch 22 because I've always been underweight for my height and size, age, but also like in a normal situation where I'm doing more things by myself, like living by myself, um, transferring to the toilet, I have to carry my whole body weight on my right arm and shoulder and and my left arm helps out when it can, but it doesn't really do much. So like
Mm.
I need to be heavier, but I don't want to be so heavy that I make it hard for people to lift me, which is already challenging, and then for me to lift myself.
And so 110 to 115 is sort of where you are, and that's sort of the sweet spot.
I mean, I don't really like. I wouldn't call it a sweet spot. I mean, I feel good. I still throw up from time to time, but I
Mm.
feel a lot better than I did because I couldn't keep anything down. I mean, it wasn't like an automatic like I'm gonna be sick. It might be hours or a day later, but eventually, like because if things are just sitting in your stomach for days, and then eventually, the stomach fills up, and at, at, at the beginning of the process, my stomach was like 3.5 to 4 times its size it's supposed to be. It was that stretch. So yeah,
No.
like it went to my belt. You know, it's not supposed to go that far for any of us.
Mm, mm. So, I mean, when you and I set this call up, when we talked last week, I said, and I mean, I can't tell any difference than when you and I would talk a year ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So, how is your recovery going? Like, how do you feel now?
It's going. I mean, it's hard. Um, like I said to you last week, this is I've been a person with a disability my whole life. Proud of it in spite of its challenges, and but this is the most disabled I've ever felt. Like,
Mm,
you know, the things that I used to be able to do for myself, I'm like I couldn't do like couldn't even eat. And then, you deal with stereotypes like, what do you mean you've never had a tube to feed you before? From medical professionals. And I'm like, I've always eaten everything by mouth. So I don't so
mm,
so having liquid food pumped into me on a 16-hour cycle which
mm,
feels very weird, by the way. Like the literal feeling is very weird. Um, like that's a foreign concept. And then that having to wear a diaper at times, and just um like I consider myself a very strong person mentally,
mm.
but this pushed me like to several breaking points, like um at several different points in the process for sure.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you've suffered this recent illness. Um, you've shared you've been disabled your whole life. You've been searching full time for work for more than 2 years.
Again,
Um, again, I mean, these like challenging congenital issues, and yet you are one of the toughest, the most persistent, and the most upbeat people I know, Geoff. How how do you keep that up? How do you keep up that mindset?
um, the honest answer, because we're friends and practically family, I don't. I just I do a good job of masking it. I don't think hiding it is the appropriate word. I think it's more of a mask. Um,
Hmm.
but I have to give a huge shout out to my, you know, mom, dad,
Hmm.
stepdad, um, my siblings, my inner circle of friends. I often say,
Hmm.
a lot of people like know me because my personality and the wheelchair sticks out, and combine those two things. And a lot of people know me, they recognize me, but very few people such as yourself like know me, if that makes sense. But this process has really highlighted like, okay, I knew these people were my people, but I don't know where I would be without each one of those subgroups and individuals within those subgroups. Like, because you talk to your friends differently than you talk to whoever, but just constantly like pick me up. You never know who you're gonna meet. Like I met this woman, her name's Allie in Charlotte. She, through a mutual friend, she ended up working for my wheelchair company. Um, and I've only known her for like 2 years now, but because she was the one that was like drag your butt to the hospital and stayed with me and sat with me through the post surgery nights, which were awful, because you're coming out of anesthesia and all that stuff. And so I said to her the other day, like your family from now until the end, and it's crazy because one of my best friends I've known since the third grade, and then her I've known about 2 years, give or take. But it just underscores it's not about how long you know somebody. It's like when I needed this person, they continually either physically showed up or texted or however a person chooses to show up. Like this group of people, has really like you know elevated me as much as they can, and I'm really like so fortunate. But hospitals and rehab centers filled with dementia patients are very isolating places. So
Mm.
a lot of tears, a lot of time to think about everything that you're not happy with, whether it has to do with health or not at all. It's just you know it's very easy to go into those spirals we all get into every now and then, and I'm fortunate to be back around family now, but it's still isolating and challenging, and because my stuff was, I forgot to say this earlier, my stuff was in Dallas, um
Mm.
because I was,
Wait, your stuff, like your possessions were in Dallas.
yeah, like I was, my lease was up in Charlotte like in October, and I went into the hospital in like the middle of August. So so I basically with the help of my mom moved out of my apartment from the hospital, and and because my objective was to never come back here, even though I keep getting sucked back here, life. But then you have to make the adult decisions. Like I have to go where my support is. Um,
Mm. Mm.
I just have to. It's those decisions we all have to make as humans. Like, yeah, I don't really want to do this, but this is the only move that can be made here. So.
Mm. Mm. I want to pick up another thread from one of the early questions about career and job and job hunt. Um, you describe yourself as a quote seasoned strategist with a unique problem solving and a relentless approach end quote as you tackle marketing challenges. Tell us more. What is an organization going to get by hiring you? How will they benefit from you, your experience, your approach to marketing?
I think that's where the disability is a huge advantage, as much as it might be viewed as a disadvantage, just because it forces you to always be thinking outside the box. Um, because when I go somewhere, I have I have a plan A through D, and plan F is figure it to bleep out. And sometimes you get to plan F. So I think the unique problem solving is just how I'm wired, because for example, my body feels a little bit different every day. So maybe when I'm putting on my clothes, I can't do it exactly the same as I did it yesterday. So I have to shift it. I mean, you wouldn't notice because the setup looks the same and whatever else, but like you have to change the angle of your leg just ever so slightly to be able to put your pant leg on. I think it's just that, like the ability to, okay, I'm trying to get to this physical location, but there's no ramp here. Like I was in Italy with my family over in February, and we had an off day, no family stuff where you could go do your own thing, but we were meeting at a location for drinks, and and you know I got myself like through Rome, narrow sidewalks, had to hop a couple curbs. Not ashamed to say, got got some help from some new Italian friends, and made it work. But everybody was like, "Holy crap! How did you get here?" Because we struggled. Everybody in my family is able-bodied, for those that don't know. And so they're like, "We struggled to get here. How the hell did you get here by yourself?" Just, but again, that goes to the problem solving. Like, okay, there's no ramp over here. Let me try the other side. Well, there's no ramp over there either. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to hop a curb, or I'm gonna have to ask somebody that I've never seen before or will see again to help, like, lift my 200 plus pound chair and, like, over said curb. So it it's just it's just like understanding that you have a fear of whatever, but like, okay, I need to ask Russell for help. That's an area where I struggle, and I'm trying to get better at as I get older. Like, hey, I need help with something.
Mm.
But
But I love that. I love that approach to problem solving. I love that I've got a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F before I even start because I know I may have to get to plan F to make the day work.
yeah, and the joke with my inner circle of friends and myself is, and they've adopted it in their own lives. Plan F is figure it the F out. It's like Plan F is everything's gone to crap, and you're just trying to, which is how I would describe my German experience from a couple of years ago. Like, all right, nothing. It was supposed to go this way, didn't go this way at all. But I'm
Mm,
however many thousands of miles from home, and like I gotta. It's on me to figure it out in a different language, and
mm, mm, mm. Wow, wow, wow. Just real quick, what was your favorite thing in Italy?
I mean, I'm a history dork and a half, so just I minored in history twice. It's something that I've always like remembered and can recall. So just being around things that are thousands of years old, and like we went to the Vatican, not Catholic, but you got to go, and you I could have spent 3 weeks in the Roman room where they have all the emperors and statues,
Mm.
and and I'm recognizing so and so by face, not even reading the name placard because I'm just that person. I'm like, that's Nero right there. That's probably Claudius. Nope, I'm wrong. That's like, but history has always been one of my, like, whenever I get stressed out, I enjoy going backwards and hanging out with people that have been dead for 1,000 years, because it's a subject matter that I get, that I've always gotten, and it relaxes me quite a bit. So
I love that. You and I are kindred spirits. I feel the same way. Yeah, absolutely. Mm.
so if I'm really like, recently, I was struggling more so than usual with job related BS. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna watch a show on Amazon Prime about Boudica for no reason. Like, she's cool. Like, she's one of my favorite historical people. Like
Like the Queen of Britain.
yeah, like the Queen of the Iceni.
It's awesome.
Like just 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 randomly, because I was like, all right,
But why is she one of your favorite historical people?
well, she she told Rome to f off, and then did something about it for a while. I mean, she wasn't gonna win, but she won. She won in the long run. Like,
That's awesome. She told Rome to F off and she did something about it.
well, because throughout history, so many people are like, XYZ group of people is oppressive, and we're just gonna sit here and like complain about it until somebody comes along and like, we might lose, but losing is better than just sitting here and like taking it. So let's go burn a couple towns real quick, see what happens.
Let me get back to the thread. But what's your ideal role? Like what are you looking for? What work are you looking to do?
Um, honestly, right now I just need like work, but in an ideal situation, I would like to be in a role where I could make some sort of a difference. Um, but I like being behind the scenes. So I like the push and pull of if I do my job well, everybody inside the building is like, good job. But if I do my part of the larger job poorly, then like people outside the organization know you screwed up.
Mm,
I need that kind of yin and yang at work. I've discovered. That's why like PR is cool and media relations is cool because if if you're doing your job, like everybody knows you exist, but they don't know exactly like what your role was in the process of whatever. However, if you mess up, then then everybody knows. Like,
mm,
it was them, and then you got to answer some very difficult questions about what happened, and
mm.
probably probably a lot of meetings and emails that aren't nice. And but the older I get, the more that I realize I can't run from like disability stuff. So I'm
Mm.
trying now to figure out how I can use my voice and my skills and my experiences in that space without making my disability my job necessarily. Like
Mm.
obviously if I'm doing something, disability related, it is a part of my job, but I don't want to make it all of my job, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I, I think I think and a lot of people who read or listen to the newsletter know, I've got a congenital heart defect, and I have not done a lot in those communities. Not nothing, but not a lot. When I have served in nonprofits, I've been involved in sort of uh, uh, an organization supporting Louisville's homeless population, and then sort of the group out of DC, the kind of the broader nonprofit sort of governance space, but not a lot in the sort of heart health, congenital heart space. So I think I understand it a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm in a program now. It's the Ascend program with a great disability job board and company. It's called Making Space. So if you're disabled in any kind of way, I would encourage people to go to Making Space, and create a profile, and they vet employers for, and they have partners like Salesforce and others
Hmm.
to are they really down with the disabled thing, or are they just kind of
Uh,
virtue signaling? But and I'm fortunate to know the founders in that group, but it's been great being in that first cohort and our first small groups within that cohort, because there's 10 of us in my first small group, and it's just been great to, yeah, we're working on a project, but we're also chopping it up about our experiences as we're going through the project. Like we all have different disabilities,
hmm.
but like we're like, oh yeah, I've been through that too. That effing sucks. Like, but it's and a lot of the guest speakers we've had on panels, it's been really cool just to
Hmm.
have a group of people that like get it, because I think, and you've experienced this with your own, let's just be nice and call it health issue. Like cerebral palsy is my health issue.
Mhm.
It's so nice when you go into a conversation, either said or unsaid, where you don't have to explain what your situation is.
Hmm.
Like, okay, hey, Russell, you have a congenital heart defect. What does that mean? And you have to spend so much physical and mental and emotional energy explaining that to, like, does it impact you in this way, that way? Can you do these things? But it's so liberating when you go into a space. It's like, I don't have to explain that shit. I can just be my weirdo, goofy self. And as things come up, we talk about them. But it's not like, when you go into a situation, you're like I have to present myself in such a way. Like I struggle with being perceived as weaker than I actually am because of, stereotypes. So a good example of that briefly is, and I haven't had to do this in years because with remote things we don't go out anymore. But like whether it be a meeting or a date or whatever, it's like if I'm at a restaurant, I will think ahead and be like, what can I order that obviously tastes good that I want to eat, but I don't have to cut because cutting
Oh,
is
yeah.
cutting is hard and makes me look like some kind of way with my left hand. And so that's just an example of like the kind of things that I'm already thinking about. Like,
Hmm.
do I have to cut
Hmm.
it? Because I don't want to look weird in front of a client or a boss or like like if it's my family and friends, I don't care. But if it's an elevated, if it's an that's just one example of kind of the next level thought process that a lot of us, right or wrong, have about social interaction. So
I think that's a great segue to a deeper dive I want to get into around um, what it's like to live with a disability in America. I mean, you have stated in our previous conversation a desire to move to Germany because of those supports they have for the disabled that just aren't prevalent here. Um, I want to start with this question. I mean, it links to sort of one of the themes of my newsletter, and I'm genuinely curious. You're in a wheelchair. When someone brings up the word walk or walking, what's your reaction? What's that term? What's that idea of walking mean to you? How does that strike you?
well, you know me, I'm a sarcastic SOB. So I use like I colloquially I just use walking all the time. Like I walk to the store, and my best friends and my siblings will occasionally, not every once in a while, but occasionally will be like, "Dude, don't you mean you rolled to the store just to be because they're my friends and family?" But like th- that doesn't that type of the word walking doesn't offend me at all. But it's interesting that you mentioned the general concept because over the last couple years, definitely since we've last recorded, um, and perhaps that's because I've been around more disabled professionals and just more disabled people that I look up to.
Hmm.
I've I've recently learned like one of those classic I was today years old situations that I don't have to answer all the time. Like
Hmm.
when people are at when people ask like, so how'd you get in a wheelchair? Like I have no problem answering that. Never had a problem answering that. But like questions in that line, like you know, some days based on the interaction with the person or the vibe you get off the person or whatever, or the mood that I'm in, like I don't I don't have to,
Hmm.
you know, not that kind of surface layer question because again I don't care. But like the deeper questions within that vein is like, oh my God, I don't have to have a canned answer
Yeah.
for that. And that was a really cool epiphany moment for me. Like, oh my God, I don't have to. I don't have to answer to
Hmm.
everybody if I don't want to. But you and I are sticklers for language. We both like to write, and just as I get older, understanding that there is a
Hmm.
lot of ableist language and ideology just out there that's been around me my whole life, but I didn't understand it until I was clued into it, and now it's kind of hard to miss. But again, that's a really recent, in the last 3 to 4 years or so, that's a really recent development for me. Like there's just a lot of ableist language
Hmm.
around. Some some of it is malicious, but most of it is just, you know, the true definition of ignorance. You don't know what you don't know, and like.
Hmm. 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 I want to follow up on something you just said. You gave the example of when you're going to eat out at a restaurant, looking ahead and figuring out what you're going to order so that you don't have to cut something, cut some food. Um, we've talked about I've got a congenital heart defect, but my sense is that you face obstacles in your day to day that I can't imagine. Am I right about that? And if so, can you just share with the audience, share with me some more examples like the ordering out, like the ordering from the restaurant examples of obstacles that you face on a day-to-day basis that we don't appreciate, we don't even know about, we can't even conceptualize.
Well, I mean, there, there's the obvious one when you go somewhere and there's stairs. Obvious physical barriers, but there's hidden ones when I have like I'm getting enrolled in services here in New York, and that's been a uphill struggle. Point five that I'm not going to go into because nobody wants to listen to that crap, including me. But um, you know, through that process, you understand. I've gained several key allies, like my doctor's assistant. She's on it. But but it's like when I'm going through all these evaluations for services, and the people that I've been dealing with in the within different aspects of the system have been really great people for the most part, but occasionally you get one
Mm,
that's like, wait, you're you're well spoken, and then I throw out like, yeah, I kind of have a master's degree that I'm not really using, haha, like, but uh, so not that advanced education is the end all be all because it's not for everybody. I just got lucky, but just the challenges you face when like interacting with people on Skypes and Zooms and phone calls. It's like,
mm,
but you're a medical professional. You're supposed to, like, a couple weeks ago. I went to a doctor and he was very knowledgeable, but his bedside manner was weird, and I have to go back in a couple weeks.
mm,
But like he spent most of the time looking at and addressing my mom, and
mm,
mom didn't say anything. It was me, but he was still looking at mom
mm,
until the very end, where he was like, something must have flipped, where he's like, oh shit, and then he looked at me. But
mm,
and yes, my mom is very involved because her perspective is important, but for the most part, it's like I I'm in this particular appointment, like I'm running my stuff. You're talking to me, but that example has been occurring, from the time I was 6, 7 years
mm,
old,
mm,
so now at 41. So that's
mm,
not new.
mm, 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 mm. What do you need the general population in America to know about living with a disability that they probably don't know?
I thought I thought a lot about this question over the last week or so because you could go on for 8 years about it, but trying to be succinct as possible. I think the way I would phrase it is, and this is the question that I spent the most time on in prep to be totally transparent as far as my answer being good enough and short enough.
Yeah.
But to put it directly, I think just because a person has a disability or multiple disabilities, like, doesn't mean that our lives are sad.
Mhm.
Like, like you have you have a congenital heart defect. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, you have cerebral palsy. I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, you know what I mean? I think
Mm.
I think we're all conditioned, and I do it too, so I'm not above any of it. But like, we're all conditioned to come from a place of pity. Like, you see, and I've struggled with this a lot, to be transparent. Like, when I see somebody that I perceive to be more disabled than I am, I'm like, oh my God, that sucks. And over recent years, I've really had to work on, like, dude, if somebody had that same reaction to you, you'd be pissed. So like,
Mm. Huh.
what the F are you, like, yelling at myself internally, like, what the F are you doing? Like,
Huh.
so I think I would encourage people to be like, yeah, our challenges might hit you more in the face directly, like my $40,000 machine that I'm sitting in and stuff like that. But our lives aren't sad. M- most of us are just out here doing just like you the best we can on a. Some days I feel good, just like you. Some days I don't, and we're all out here, able-bodied, disabled, or whatever, just doing the best we can on a given day.
I love that answer. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right, man. I feel exactly that. Yeah. Mm. 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 Let me you're a huge sports fan. We talked about sports 3 years ago. I want to talk about sports again.
Sure.
So first, you're a Mets fan. They made some huge moves in the offseason. And so far, we're talking late May of 2025. So far, those moves seem to be paying off. So tell me, Geoff, is this the Mets year?
Yeah, I'm trained in PR, so you're not gonna catch me with that one. It's it's way too early to say that. I mean, I like where they are. They gave up the division lead last night. It's May. I don't care. Um, but it's definitely a different Met environment than it was under the Wilpons. so so I'm just grateful for Uncle Steve, and we'll see what happens.
Um, when we talked 3 years ago, 2022, my Washington Nationals were only 3 years removed from the greatest sports moment in the history of sports when they won the World Series. And they were a total flaming like dumpster truck of a disaster. Back then in 2022, you did not have any hopes for my Washington Nationals. Uh, any reason for me to have hopes now?
Yeah, um, obviously they don't have Mackenzie Gore anymore, but he's in San Diego now doing his thing. But they have a lot of young kids who are playing for their jobs and are hungry to stay where they're at. And the farm system it's not as great as it was, but it's stable. So I would just keep rooting for, that's why, to bring it back to the Mets for a second, that's why it's interesting to be a Met fan right now because previously the farm system was a hot mess,
Yeah.
and everybody can talk about Soto because that $800 million is easy to talk about for baseball fans and non-baseball fans alike. But for the first time in a long time, they have a mix of free agents and just like you were mentioning with your Nets, our kids. And as a Met fan, there's more kids coming. Will they all pan out? Of course not. But I think with the Nationals, you, you know, you got Cruz. I love to hate that dude because he's a uh he's a spark plug. I mean, you got C.J. Abrams. You got a number of pitchers that are solid, and got a beautiful ballpark in the nation's capital. So if people have people have the discretionary income to go do that thing, I wouldn't mind going to do that. I mean, I think just like anything, like with the job stuff or anything else, is just just knowing what you're watching. You're not watching a World Series contending team. However, what you're watching is a team that's like getting better, and teams like the Mets, like the Phillies. I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but like you have to beat the Nationals because the Nationals are good enough to take games away from you that are going to matter in September. So if if you lose 2 games to the Nationals that the Phillies don't or the Braves don't, then that could be the difference between winning the division, a wild card, and or not making the playoffs at all. So I think like the Mets won 2 out of 3 against the Pirates, same thing. But the problem is the Phillies played them a week later and swept the Pirates. So I mean, again, it's only May. I'm not worried about it. But could could that one game come back to bite the Mets in the rear? Like I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the thing about the Nationals, 2022, tough. I mean, this team, like you said, like they're fun to watch. They're scrappy. They look like, even though they know they're not an amazing team, it looks like they're having fun. So it's fun to watch them.
In my personal baseball experience, like I was a part of the University of Texas baseball team. We're finally back. We got a new coach, and we're killing it now. Could be the number 1 overall national seed in the tournament this year. Very excited. But anyways, when I first got there in 2008, I sat out because they weren't ready for me. So I sat out. So my first year was in '09, and we ended up making the College World Series final that year with some of the guys that have become some of my closest friends now. But and we didn't know the history. We knew it, but we didn't know the weight of the history of the University of Texas baseball. So we were just, I was 24, they were 18, whatever, and when we were, as we called it, we still call it this, freshmen together, even though I wasn't in school at this point. But we didn't know that the University of Texas has been to Omaha like more than anybody, and like you heard people talk about it, but you know what I mean. Like we didn't understand the weight of it, so we made it to the College World Series final because we had a meeting the night before. I can say this now because it's been 11, however many years. We had a meeting the night before we left for the World Series, and like we're like, "Eff it, guys, we're going. Let's go. We're Texas. Let's go try to win the whole thing." Fast forward 2 years later, so it's 2011 now. We've been to that same group has been to the College World Series once already, and like we're supposed to be better than we are. And our own media back in Austin is giving the team the business, and like now I'm in school and I can't even go to class, and like I was taking my prereqs to get into grad school, but you can't even go to class without some random kid you don't even know. Like, dude, what's up with that over there? And so we made it to the College World Series again that year, but the difference was like we knew we were out of gas. Like we had used all the tricks and injuries to just to get there. So we're like, so the week before, you're like, because for those people that don't know, it's a double elimination tournament. So you could be there for a minimum of 4 days, maximum of 2 weeks. So you're like, so Russ, how many changes of clothes are you bringing? You know, because basically how many days do we expect to be there, right? And my buddy who played in the majors, retired a couple years ago, looked at me dead in the face and goes, "I'm only packing for a couple days, man." I go, I go, "Yeah, man, me too." And sure enough, first first game was Florida, lost that game. Went into the losers bracket. Second game, North Carolina, lost that game. Got stuck in a tornado like that night and spent the night in the hotel basement because Omaha, Nebraska tornadoes, really really scary stuff. but but we were literally there for like because sports like with the Nationals in 2022, crazy stuff happens. You catch lightning in a bottle, nobody expected that. But for the most part, like if you're plugged into something, like like obviously in 2011 we were hoping to be there longer, but if we were honest about it, we're just like, hey man, we have duct taped this thing together all year long. And then when you look at like our side of the bracket with Vanderbilt and Florida and North Carolina and us, it was just like we deserve to be there. That's not what we're saying, but we are by far the weakest team on our side. So Brandon looked at me, 13-year major league veteran. We didn't know that at the time, but that's what he looked at me dead in the face, goes, "Yeah, man, I'm only packing for 4 days."
And when you know, you know. When you
I
know,
go,
you know.
I go, okay, me too. And if we're there longer, Nike will just give us more clothes.
So that's a great segue to some questions I had. You were with the baseball team. You're around this great aura, this great legacy of University of Texas sports. So, but given NIL, given the transfer portal, what's going to be the new equilibrium in big time college sports in 5 years, 10 years? Are we going to
Mm.
have this chaos in the portal? Are we going to have, the University of Tennessee quarterback leaving because he's making 2.4 mil a year and that's not enough? Like, how's this going to shake out, man?
And now he's getting less than that at UCLA and has to pay California taxes. So his his dad and agent, I'm using agent loosely, folks. His dad and agent really really screwed the pooch on that one. Um, for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
people, for your listeners and readers that don't know me or don't know about me, I am a recruiting degenerate too. So I subscribe to, don't have a lot of money, but I do subscribe to Inside Texas. Love the people over there. And I watch a Texas YouTube channel every day called On Texas Football. And they cover all the sports. So I'm plugged into, the 18-year-old kid in, middle of nowhere Texas that we're recruiting. And but but NIL is crazy because I'm not gonna say the person's name, but in my time, way before NIL, we were recruiting a player who's still in the major leagues now, and he signed with us. Ended up taking summer classes. It, you know, so he was enrolled at UT, but then the club that drafted him came over the top with like his major league team that he ended up breaking in with came over the top and like, okay, you wanted this, we're gonna give you that plus whatever. And he was like, all right, you guys, bye. But that was a major league team coming in and doing that. That makes sense. In the baseball landscape, that happens all the time. But now, like I was talking with a friend of mine, a former UT athlete on the women's side recently, and we were chopping it up about NIL. she's a national champion, so she has that perspective. And she goes, man, not that we would get football money or even baseball NIL money or whatever, but like, and the volleyball program at Texas is national elite too. So that that program isn't NIL poor for its level either. She goes, I don't know if I would want the pressure of having to manage that kind of money at 18. Like,
Mm,
and
mm,
then not only do you have to go to class and practice, but now you have obligations. Like, okay, I've gotta show up to Russell Smith's barbecue and do that whole deal, and not because they're giving you good money for it or whatever it is, but like it's one thing that I learned is that and I was part of my baseball team where I went to undergrad as well, but we're Division I too, but nowhere near to the infrastructure of Texas. But like it was really hard for me to go to grad school and fulfill my baseball responsibilities. And that does that doesn't include working out. That doesn't include like yes, I went to practice, but I didn't have to go to every practice. I just went because I'm a degenerate. It wasn't required to me. I was only required to do games, but it gave me an insight into like,
mm,
wait, I've got to go to practice. I've got to work out. I've got to make sure that my school responsibilities are. Let's be honest, some guys and girls are way more studious than others. So just like the regular student population. So
mm,
some of the guys are doing just well enough so they can play. And then other guys, academics is a much bigger part of the puzzle because they realize that they're probably not going to go pro. So
mm,
it's really hard. Like man, I got to turn this paper in. I got to turn it in 3 days before because even though I don't travel with the team, I'm traveling with the parents and we're leaving 3 days before the paper is due. So,
mm,
and at Texas, in my program, it wasn't turn it in when you get back. It was okay if you're going to be gone, your stuff has to be in before you roll out. So,
mm, mm,
certain members of the football staff tried to get away with like I would be in groups with in class and be like, sorry man, I couldn't do the thing because we had. I'm like, that might fly with anybody else in here, but that's not like you're barking up the wrong tree with this person. So, but so I say all that to say it's just a very complicated landscape that
mm.
that you're putting on kids.
Yeah.
Like they're 17, 18-year-old kids. Like now I gotta manage the money, I gotta manage the time, I gotta manage the people around me that just want they don't care about me, but they want access to the lifestyle that they think I have or can can provide them. Um,
Mm,
which was hard for me to learn on a personal level. Like
mm,
when I was at Texas, are these people friends with me because I'm dope, or are they friends with me because they know who my friends are? And
mm,
and I was older. I was when I first got to Texas, I was 24, but
mm,
I really struggled. Like, is this person really interested in what I have to offer, or
mm,
Geoff is friends with everybody? He could theoretically hook us up with opportunities and people and social
mm,
scenes. That,
mm,
that's a really hard ask on somebody who's
mm,
who's that young.
mm,
But but I don't think eventually. I don't know how many years it's going to take, but eventually, I think student athletes will be have to be employees
mm,
so that they can collectively bargain for various
mm,
benefits. Because with the house settlement looming, could be could be coming down as early as tomorrow as we record. Um, and so you mean to tell me a kid that is used to getting paid 200,000, if you got to take it out of the $20 million budget, most of that is going to go to football? Okay, okay, Russ, now we can only pay you 50,000. Where he's gonna expect that the money be made up somewhere. So you're gonna get back to the 80s where it's like, okay, we're gonna give your mom a house, and we're gonna give you know
Yes.
you're gonna get back to the under the table stuff. We'll we'll give you a car, but don't tell anybody how you got it. We'll give your parents we'll give your parents a house that's way beyond their actual means. Like,
Mm,
how'd you
mm,
afford that house in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, don't ask questions.
mm, mm.
'Cause the bigger schools still have the donors, and
Yeah.
they still have the capability to do that. So,
Mm, mm.
and
Interesting stuff, man.
and everybody likes to say like we're above that. Like, man, people just people just want to win. They don't, as long as you're not literally murdering people. Like, there are portions of the fan base that don't care. And
Yeah.
in the case of the Florida Gators of the early 2000s, they had a whole bunch of legitimate criminals on that team, but they were winning, so nobody cared. Literally, nobody cared. So,
So who is going to win the college football national championship this year?
uh, Texas has as good shot as anybody. Ohio State has a good shot at anybody. Penn State has like, you know, I mean, Texas has made the college football semifinal back-to-back years. So we'll see how Arch Manning does because he's the leader now. So, but it's really hard to win. Six. You got to go through a grueling regular season, and then you got to win 4 or 5 extra games. So a lot of that is who's healthiest at the end of the year. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Andrew's a big wild card. Big wild card.
So we'll see, but it's fun to be a fan of the University of Texas again, especially in football, because we went through about a decade and a half where we were wandering the wilderness. So it's it's nice to be back. Does it guarantee us winning anything? But it's no, but it's nice to be in the mix.
Yeah, totally. Uh, Tell me your thoughts. Is LeBron James going to come back to play again? Is he going to be with the Lakers? Is his career over? What do you think?
I don't follow the NBA like that, however, I am aware. But I think it honestly depends on his opportunities, like off the court. Um, because let's be honest, LeBron's achieved enough. So I think it depends on how much energy he wants to put into the on the court stuff. Because one of my good friends is a retired athlete, as I said, and so I have a little bit of insight. Even though
Hmm.
it's not it's not the games that become a problem. It's the getting ready to play the games
Hmm.
at the end that becomes a problem.
Hmm.
Like, so so if he's at a point where he still enjoys working out and eating right and going to see the chiropractor and all those related things, then I don't see why he wouldn't keep playing because he's a physical freak and can keep playing. But as as my good friend said, I just didn't want to do all the off season stuff to get ready to play anymore.
Hmm. Interesting. I think it's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of that. Huh. What's um what's one sports story that is kind of hidden? We're not talking about it. Maybe I haven't even heard of it, even whiffed it. That's going to turn out to be huge, even though no one is paying attention, talking about it right now.
Oh, um, maybe it's the European influence. I love soccer. That's a recent. development in my sporting life over the last few years. But
Nice.
maybe it's because I talk to a bunch of English people and Germans all the time, and but I think people are starting to talk about it more. But I think the growth of women's soccer, football, and
Mm.
women's sports in general, I think is is the wave to be on now. Because um, in the Premier League, for example, yeah, a lot of the women have, like the Arsenal women or whatever, they have their own stadium separate from the stadium that everybody knows on the men's side. But more and more now, as popularity increases, they're playing more games in the big yard, as they say,
Mm.
which is great to see. You know, uh,
Mm.
because representation matters. If you can see it, you can be it. And I think from a business standpoint, there's a lot of untapped money there too.
I keep wondering if women's sports is just going to blow up and grow and grow and grow in popularity because of sports betting. Because there's more of an edge there. It's less well known. There are less people playing in that space in the betting world. You know, we're we're going through a huge explosion in the interest in sports betting, and I wonder if betting is going to be a really fascinating avenue to increase the popularity of women's sports. I mean, that's a guess. I don't know. I just keep thinking that.
That I honestly I had not thought of that, but that's a great insight by you. I don't see why not, especially especially in Europe because they, they've had they've had betting stations long before we have. So
Yeah, like how much more can somebody have an edge like about LeBron James, talking about his stats, talking about LeBron James, whereas there is there's probably a huge edge to be found and taken advantage of on the betting side on women's sports. Like pick a women's sport, I think there's just
right.
less known about it in the world, about the players, about the style, about trends, and that's what people do to bet is to try to get an edge.
Oh,
Hmm.
something wild I read over the last week, maybe two, is that like a lot of a lot of the stars in the women's soccer game have been tearing their ACLs, both here in our league and
Huh.
then in the European leagues as well. But now they're starting to do research into if like certain menstrual cycles and the hormonal fluctuation within that may or may not have an effect on
Hmm.
ACL tears because a lot of a lot of some of the best players in the world have
Hmm.
experienced blowing out their ACL. So
Hmm.
we don't, as a man, obviously we know nothing about that. But I think that people people have people have started to realize like, okay, this injury is a problem that's literally costing us money because our product isn't as good. And like you said, like I've said, this is a time where we can strike, where we can make the money and boost the popularity. So let's let's put money into it. Might be nothing, but the fact that they're willing to research it, I think, is a testament to where women's soccer football is. Because
Hmm.
if they didn't care enough, nobody would look into that. Like maybe there is no causation, but maybe there is.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Well, Geoff, this has been an awesome conversation. Like every talk with you is, I always learn a lot. I always just enjoy our talks. I want to end this conversation with just one last question. 1 year from now, tell us about the life you'd like to be living. The last 2, 3 years have been tough on the job front, on the health front. 1 year from now, where would you like to be living? City, country, living situation? What are you doing for work? How are you filling your days?
Oh, um, let's start with the easy part. City for sure. Um, d don't really like the woods. Um,
What city?
um, Probably would have to maybe be here because um, my doctors are here and stuff. But one thing that I would like to do personally away from work is, and I've been talking about this with friends. We've talked a lot over the years, but I, I need to do a better job of going to see, making an effort to see my people. Um,
Mm, mm,
so over the next year, assuming that I'm working somewhere doing something, which I'll get to in a second, um, you know, just take maybe one trip a quarter and go see Russ and the kids, or that's one thing that I've come to the realization with the illness. I don't think I can be, at least not right now, I don't think I can be the wandering person that I was, living across the country away from family.
mm,
But but I would
mm.
like to get back to the person that, like, oh, I can go to Louisville for a week and chill. I can go to Houston, San Antonio, Dallas to hang with the crew, or maybe we pick a random location and we all meet up there.
Yeah.
But it's been,
Mm,
last week, for example, was 11 years since I graduated UT. So a lot of a lot of mixed emotions there. Like, I'm proud I did it. Met some of my best friends that are family now. But from a job standpoint, the Masters hasn't paid off. So there's a lot of
mm,
residual anger there, if I'm honest. But it's just highlighted that it's been 10 years since I've seen one of my best friends. She was
mm.
graduating undergrad at the time. I was graduating graduate at the time, and the last time we've physically seen each other is the night before we both graduated.
Mm, mm, mm,
Like, it's hard going
mm,
11 years without being able to hug it out with one of your, best friends, and 8 years with
mm.
another one, and the list goes on and on. So one of
Huh.
the things I would like to address, regardless of job title and funds, is like, okay, I really have to make an effort to see my people. But as far as
Yeah. Huh.
far as what I want to do, I don't know. I'm toying with the idea of, do I get back into sports? Do I do I lean heavily into nonprofit and go like heavily into like the disability thing? Um, it's hard right now, to be frank, because almost 3 years in, and life happens as you've experienced. Like, at this point, I just need to work. So I don't have the luxury of like, oh, it's not a dream scenario. I don't really want to do that. I'm not in that place right now.
Mhm.
So as far as work, I would like to be doing something that, like that gives me purpose, that like I feel a sense of value, because job searching can be, and very much is, soul sucking and
Yeah.
crushing. Am I good enough? And imposter syndrome, and some of the people that I mentioned throughout this call, it's been helpful to see them struggle too. Two of my best friends that I graduated with from UT just got jobs, and so we've been going through the mud together, and
Mm,
It's been a nice reminder because where I struggle is how much of me not being selected for interviews or when I'm in interviews not being progressed is the disability, even though I know that's not true, but that's part of the voice in my head
mm,
that's really loud sometimes.
mm,
But to see your boys, non-gender specific boys, like, oh, they're struggling too. You know,
mm,
we're getting ghosted too, and having great interviews as well, but not progressing. And so it's
mm,
been a good reminder, like, it's not about, you know, it's not as does the disability play a role? I'm sure it does, but like it's done a really good job of not allowing me to fall into that like mental trap as easily. But but yeah, like
mm.
professionally to answer the question, like I think I just want to be at a place like just making it up to be funny, like Russell Smith Inc. I just want to be there for a while and feel like I'm doing good work and we're all capitalists, so let's make some money while we're doing it and you know
Mm.
have a good time most days while we're doing it. And, but because the last full-time role that I got let go from the last time we spoke, speaking freely, I thought like I was supported pretty well. I thought I was gonna be there
Mm,
for a minute, and then life happens at 100 miles an hour, and
mm,
then you're not. So and and fast forward to today, here I'm still wandering the wilderness. So I think as far as like job goals, as corny as it sounds, like my first goal is just to be somewhere for a minute so I can gain some form of like obviously, savings on the financial side and take care of some things I got to take care of, but you know, just feel value and like because you know that's what job searching takes away from a lot of us is like you're good enough to sell houses, but until you until you get a opportunity to do that, are you good enough to sell houses? You know what I mean? So
mm, mm.
and so I think that's where I'm at now.
Geoff, this has been an awesome conversation. It's been great to hear your candor, your honesty, your heart. Uh, I'm wishing you well. I'm rooting for you in the next year. And just thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.